What you're about to discover has nothing to do with forcing yourself to stay positive or pretending you're fine when you're not. It's not about suppressing your feelings, silencing your fears, or trying to override your inner experience through sheer willpower. This isn't another strategy for fighting every negative thought that passes through your mind. In fact, it's the opposite. The key to a life where no one and nothing can shake your inner peace lies in something far more powerful and far more overlooked. Most people spend their lives searching for solutions outside themselves. They try to fix the world, change people, adjust circumstances, and avoid discomfort, all the while missing the truth that real transformation only ever begins within. It's not the events of life that determine your peace, it's how you experience them. And that experience is shaped entirely by what's happening inside you. Have you ever wondered why some people can remain calm even in chaos? They lose loved ones, face unexpected changes, go through heartbreak, and still carry an air of peace. They're not immune to pain. They're not emotionless. They've simply discovered how to anchor themselves to something deeper than circumstances. Meanwhile, others seem constantly on edge, unraveling at the slightest trigger, overwhelmed not by the magnitude of events, but by their internal reactions. So what separates the two? Is it personality? Dark. Or is there a hidden principle that turns ordinary people into unshakable souls? The truth is, most of us are taught that reality is objective, that life just happens, and our feelings are simply the natural outcome of those external events. But that's not how it works. Every experience you have, every moment of joy, fear, frustration, or peace is shaped by how you interpret what's happening. And that interpretation is filtered through years of beliefs, emotional patterns, and subconscious programming you may have never examined. It's like wearing tinted glasses. If your lens is colored by fear, guilt, or anger, the world will appear dark, even when it's not. You won't see life as it is. You'll see it as you are. That's why two people can go through the same situation and respond in completely different ways. One breaks, the other grows. Not because life played favorites, but because one knew how to see through a clearer lens. This is where real freedom begins. Not in escaping your emotions, but in learning how to read them. Not in ignoring discomfort, but in transforming how you relate to it. The goal isn't to become some emotionless robot. It's to become deeply human and yet completely in control. When you stop fighting your emotions and start listening to them, they stop being obstacles and start becoming guides. Every emotion you feel is a message. Sadness often means it's time to let go of an expectation, an attachment, or a belief. Fear usually signals a limiting story running in your mind, one that says, "I'm not enough," or "I'm not safe." Anger points to a boundary that's been crossed, a value that's been ignored. But instead of hearing these messages, most people silence them. They distract themselves, work harder, scroll endlessly, or numb out. They tell themselves, "I shouldn't feel this way." But all that suppression only makes the emotion stronger. What you resist doesn't go away. It stays, buried, and begins to control you from the shadows. Carl Jung, one of the greatest minds in psychology, said it best: "What you do not make conscious will rule your life, and you will call it fate." So many of us walk through life haunted by thoughts and emotions we've never looked at, patterns we've never questioned, and fears we've never faced. We think we're reacting to the present, but we're really reacting to the past, memories, wounds, or beliefs that have silently shaped the way we see ourselves and the world. Imagine this. You're caught in a sudden storm. The wind howls, the rain pours, the sky darkens. Most people try to fight it. They clench their fists, push against the wind, beg for the sky to clear. But the storm doesn't end because you resist. It ends when you let it pass. Emotions are the same. They are not permanent. They are not your identity. They are passing weather. And when you stop resisting them, they stop overwhelming you. Now imagine if, instead of running from fear, you turn toward it and ask, "What are you trying to teach me?" Imagine seeing your emotions not as threats to be managed, but as portals to deeper awareness. This is the power of inner work. When you shift your relationship with what you feel, you start to reclaim your inner authority. Take a moment to think about how you normally react to discomfort. Do you lash out? Withdraw? Numb yourself with distractions? What would happen if, in those moments, you simply paused and asked, "What part of me is speaking right now?" Is it a wounded child? An old belief? A memory you've never truly processed? That kind of awareness breaks the cycle. It opens space between stimulus and response, and in that space, you find your power. Jung also spoke of the silent observer, a part of you that watches without judgment. It sees your thoughts, your triggers, your stories, but doesn't get lost in it. When you live from this space, you are no longer a slave to your emotions. You stop needing the world to behave a certain way in order for you to feel okay. You carry your peace with you. You become the calm in the storm. So many of the thoughts that hold you back aren't even yours. They were absorbed, handed down from parents, teachers, society. You internalize them as truths. I'm not good enough. I have to earn love. If I fail, I'll be rejected. But just because a belief is familiar doesn't mean it's true. You have the power to rewrite the script. Imagine someone who spent their life trying to earn love, always pleasing, always putting others first, terrified of being alone. Deep down, they carry the belief that their worth is conditional. But the moment they realize that this belief is a story, not a fact, they begin to reclaim their life. They set boundaries. They stop seeking validation. They prioritize themselves not out of selfishness, but out of self-respect. And something magical happens. Their relationships shift. They're no longer needed for what they give. They're loved for who they are. Now picture someone else who sees failure as a personal flaw. Every time they fall short, they beat themselves up. They compare. They shrink. They stay small to avoid the shame of falling again. But what if they saw failure not as something shameful, but as feedback? What if they understood that every mistake is simply information? Suddenly, their fear dissolves. They try more. They learn more. They grow. And that growth is where their power lives. Every thought you nurture is a seed. Plant doubt, fear, or resentment, and you'll harvest anxiety, conflict, and frustration. But plant belief, compassion, and clarity, and you'll begin to see your outer world transform to match your inner one. This isn't just poetic, it's practical. The mind is always listening. And the moment you change your internal narrative, everything changes. Next time a self-limiting thought arises, don't take it at face value. Pause. Ask, is this even mine? Is it helping me? Do I want to keep carrying it? You'll realize the only power these thoughts have is the power you've given them. And you can choose differently right now. Here's the most liberating truth of all. You don't need the world to change in order to experience a different reality. You just need to change how you relate to it. Someone who sees life as a series of hardships will always find proof of that. But someone who sees life as a classroom, where every challenge holds a lesson, will find wisdom in the same moments others find misery. When you stop resisting life, it stops resisting you. When you stop fearing uncertainty, it becomes your teacher. When you stop fighting your emotions, they start working with you, not against you. Now imagine living without the fear of failure, because you know your worth isn't tied to outcomes. Imagine not being ruled by others' opinions, because you know that only your voice defines your value. Imagine no longer fearing the unknown, because you trust yourself to face whatever comes. That is freedom. Not freedom that comes from control or from everything going your way, but a freedom that begins inside, a freedom that no one can give you and no one can take away. And in that space, you discover the peace you've been searching for was never outside of you. It was always within, quiet, steady, waiting for you to finally turn inward and listen. We often see fear as something to be conquered, something that stands in the way of who we want to become. But what if fear isn't the enemy at all? What if it's not a barrier, but a messenger, a misunderstood part of us trying to speak? What if, beneath the panic and the racing heart, there's a part of you just asking to be understood, seen, and held with compassion? Think for a moment about a fear you've carried with you for years. It could be the fear of rejection, of failure, of being truly seen and found lacking. Maybe it's the fear that no matter what you do, it will never be enough. And every time you try to grow, try to stretch into a version of yourself that feels bolder, freer, more whole, this fear rises. It whispers stories in your mind, weaving convincing reasons why you shouldn't take that risk, why you shouldn't speak, love, or dare. But have you ever really paused to ask, where does that voice come from? Is it even yours? Sometimes it sounds like our own thoughts, but often it carries echoes from the past, words from a parent who couldn't offer the love we needed, a teacher who dismissed us, a friend who betrayed us, a world that conditioned us to shrink. These echoes become internalized, looping inside our heads as if they were our own truth. But they're not. That voice of fear is a recording, not a prophecy. It's a ghost from a chapter you've long outgrown. When you stop to listen, not with judgment, but with genuine curiosity, you begin to understand. Fear isn't telling you, don't, because you're incapable. It's telling you, wait, because you were once unprotected. And in that pause, in that breath of recognition, everything begins to change. You start to realize that fear isn't a wall, it's a signpost. It's a part of you asking for attention, not repression. It says, there's something here, something worth exploring, something that matters. And instead of running or numbing, you turn inward and ask, what is this fear trying to teach me? Sometimes it's telling you to trust yourself more deeply. Sometimes it's pointing to the places where your self-worth still relies on someone else's approval. Other times, it's simply calling you to stop avoiding the truth of what you really want and to step forward, even with trembling hands. That's where your power begins, not in overcoming fear, but in integrating it. When you embrace your emotions instead of fighting them, fear begins to lose its grip. You're no longer chained to old survival strategies. You start living from a place of presence, not protection. Now picture a real-world scenario. You're about to speak up in a room full of people you admire, or you're standing at the edge of a conversation you've been avoiding. Your heart starts to race. Your palms sweat. That voice comes back. What if I mess this up? What if they think less of me? But this time, you don't react automatically. You take a moment. You breathe. You ask yourself, what part of me is afraid, and what story is it telling? You realize this isn't just about now. It's about every time you felt silenced, ignored, or misunderstood. This moment has activated something ancient. But here's the shift. You don't run from it. You don't try to shove it down. You acknowledge it. You breathe into it. And then, with a steady voice, you speak your truth. Maybe your hands still shake. Maybe your voice cracks. But you show up anyway. That's bravery. That's growth. That's healing in motion. You begin to notice something subtle but profound. Peace is no longer something you chase. It becomes your foundation. And it's not a peace that means everything is perfect. It's a peace that says, even in the mess, I trust myself. We often think of peace as silence, stillness, the absence of pain. But real peace is much more alive than that. It's not passive, it's powerful. It's the ability to be present with all of life's colors without being overwhelmed. It's standing firm in who you are, even when everything around you is shaking. Some days, that peace feels close. Other days, you'll wake up and feel a heaviness in your chest. It's not just tiredness, it's emotional weight. A burden you can't see but feel in every breath. Maybe it's regret. Maybe it's the sting of someone's words echoing longer than they should. Maybe it's a choice you can't undo. And again, that voice whispers, "You're not enough." But now you know what to do. You don't take it at face value. You don't drown in it. You ask, what story have I attached to this feeling? Is it even true, or just a habit I've repeated for years? That's the trap most people fall into, believing that pain comes from others, from events, from life being unfair. But in truth, the most consistent source of suffering is the story we tell ourselves about what happens. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." That means every moment of emotional discomfort is a doorway, not to run from, but to walk through with awareness. Now imagine you're in conflict. You feel misunderstood, maybe attacked. Your instinct is to react, to defend yourself, to make the other person see your side. But instead of reacting, you pause. You ask, what part of me is being triggered? What old wound is being poked at? And you realize it's not just about this person or this moment. It's about all the times you didn't feel seen. And from that understanding, you soften, not out of weakness, but out of strength. You respond with clarity instead of chaos. And the more you do this, the more you take back your power. You realize that no one can truly make you feel anything unless there's a part of you that's still unresolved. You stop giving your power away to other people's moods, behaviors, or opinions. That's emotional responsibility. And with it comes emotional freedom. But here's where most people get stuck. They want to feel better, but they won't let go of the identity that keeps them small. They say things like, "I'm just too sensitive," or "I always get anxious," or "That's just how I am." These statements feel harmless, but they're not. They're self-fulfilling prophecies, beliefs dressed as facts. But what if you stop saying those things? What if you challenge them? Every time you catch yourself labeling who you are based on old pain, you ask, is this true, or is this just familiar? That's where change begins. Not with pretending to be someone else, but with reclaiming who you really are beneath the conditioning. Carl Jung called this process individuation, becoming your true self, free from the masks, the roles, and the inherited beliefs. And it begins by stepping into silence, real silence. The kind that has no distractions, no notifications, no voices except your own. In that silence, things surface. You start to hear what your heart has been trying to say. You begin to see where your boundaries are too loose or too rigid. You realize where you've been abandoning yourself to gain approval. And when you commit to that inner work, something miraculous happens. People who once triggered you lose their power. Situations that used to feel unbearable become manageable. And best of all, you stop waiting for life to get easier. You start becoming stronger. That doesn't mean you won't feel pain anymore. You will. Pain is part of being human. But you won't get stuck in it. You'll see it for what it is, a wave. Intense for a while, then gone. You'll learn to ride the waves instead of drowning in it. So when someone disappoints you, you feel it, but you don't let it define you. When fear rises, you see it, but you don't become it. And that's when you know you're free. True peace doesn't come from controlling the outside world. It comes from mastering your inner world. And when you get to that place, when your well-being is no longer at the mercy of others, everything changes. You stop reacting. You start creating. And once you taste that kind of freedom, you'll never go back. You'll never again hand your peace over to something outside of you. Because now you know the truth. The calm you've been searching for isn't out there. It's been within you all along, quiet, waiting, ready.